camera on?
It's on now.
Yes. Where is this video going? Is this going to be online?
To Russia.
Oh.
So if you can kind of stand like in this area,
Oh,
I think
I'm
it's the
serious.
whole thing. Yeah. Let me see.
Could this just be just a voice only?
Probably not.
Your camera ready, it's okay.
I didn't come camera ready.
Well, you're
Are you
on.
supposed to be doing something while you're doing that?
Go ahead and pull up your all to Eclipse. But you know what? I don't know. Is y'all's Eclipse, is it connected right now to your machines?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Go ahead and write some things. Just write whatever, maybe write what I'm saying right now. I'll talk slowly. That's hard for me. I tend to talk like I'm on speed, but slow down. I want y'all to write a couple lines because I don't think the time codes will pop up if you don't have something written down. You've never done time codes? Yeah. They're really a pain in the butt, but you have to know how to do them for freelance world. I don't like, yeah. Okay, has everybody written something? And okay. How do you get to your user settings?
Alt-U.
Good job. I should have brought candy and just thrown it out at people to give answers.
We're gonna have a pinata next.
You can take some of my strategies, David, and apply them to your next
No,
class.
they already know.
Okay, so is everybody in Alt-U to go to your settings? So this is going to teach you just how to turn on the time codes. So you go to Document and Time Codes. It's pretty simple. This is why I told you this is only going to take 5 minutes. And you have the options of how you want them done. I think for most firms, they're good with every 5 lines. I know that's what my firm prefers. I think the second accepted one that they would want would be every line, which is right there. So that's just something that you're going to have to find out when you start to go to work at firms if you're freelancing. If you're in court, then this lesson is just going to be thrown out the window. But likely you will start freelancing, and so if you're with different firms, you just always need to remember when you're preparing your transcript who it's for and adjust the time codes accordingly. And some don't want them, but mine is very much a stickler that she wants time codes and the clients want that. And that's what they expect. So let's turn them on, press OK. I want to see if mine popped up. There's mine. So I want to see if everybody has theirs popped up before we do the next thing. It didn't pop up. It didn't pop up. Have you scrolled to the left to see if they're... No, don't do that.
When you open it, it may be on none.
Press just OK.
So you may have to open it, time code, then put it.
That's okay.
That's what
Okay.
And then scroll.
Order time code.
David, do you think it's a student software thing?
not the,
Yeah. No, see, it said there was 5 lines.
And then press OK. And then scroll, make sure it doesn't come up with yours. You're supposed to come up with yours. Is it? Oh, that's weird.
Mine won't come up until I print it.
Really?
I think.
Is that what you're telling me?
That's,
Okay, well, I'll keep this
Well,
part.
there were some things with the software that we couldn't do because of the student version 2, and this may be one of them.
It's really frustrating
Yeah.
to try to learn it, but
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. Y'all still write down kind of some of the cheats I'm telling you because this is stuff that I had to call the software company when I started working and ask them, and so I'll just give you all the other 2 little things that work with it, and then I'll talk about more the time code process of doing depots and just kind of hands-on stuff. So once you're in the time codes, if you're doing a video deposition with a videographer, you always want to make sure that you're synced with them because it's going to be a total pain because they're the ones declaring the time. They'll say we're on the record at, and then they'll say, you know, taking a break at whatever time. And so if that time isn't synced up to yours, then you're going to have to go back on the back end and try to sync it up after the fact to their time, and that's just a bigger pain than it's worth. So when you get to a depot and there's a videographer, just say, hey, let's sync our time, and just say, you can sync it to mine is. And I've never had anybody argue and have me try to sync it with theirs. They tend to know how. But for those times that you show up frazzled because it was a call-in, and everybody's already set up, and there's a room of 10 attorneys, and the videographer's set up, and they're just staring at you setting up your equipment, and you don't really have the time to say, hey, can we sync our times? And y'all are a minute off. What I found is probably the easiest solution is, I'll give you an example here. Okay, so find that one line where he's saying the time is, and you can't see it over Angela, but it says 11:11.
Just pull it off.
Okay, so it says the time is 11:11, and obviously that's going to be an issue with the transcript if it says the time is 10 or 11:10. So go to the line where it's giving you a problem, and you know the home key that you would have on your keyboard, everybody locate that, the home. Press home, and then go to Shift-Alt-C. So write down Shift-Alt-C, that's really the magic code that you will need to know to adjust your time codes. You'll go to this highlighted spot and you just change it from what time you want it to be, and you press OK and it updates it. So that way now it matches. And you didn't have to go mess with the whole time stamping of the whole thing. You just got that little spot where it's not matching up to match. Obviously, if it's a bigger issue, like if you were like 5 minutes off, you can't have this time be like 11:10 and then he says the time is 11:15. That's gonna look weird. So in that case, when you're off that much, there is a way to go in back to the Alt-U. I've never had to do this. I don't think it's ever been an issue, but worst case scenario, you go back into your Alt-U and the time codes, and that's where you can do an offset. And I haven't played enough with that because that's just something that my time's pretty set, and as is a videographer, but in that case you can adjust the entire time coding to be forward, you know, however many minutes, and it would just adjust the entire transcript. So that would be your oops, we really screwed this one up. But the moral of that story is just avoid not syncing. And then the only other thing that's kind of important, so let's get to the bottom. Okay, so let's say this is the end of the transcript. And my time codes fell off. Did you see that disappear, David?
Yeah.
I've never had that happen.
Really?
Yeah. That's bizarre. Let me open up my other one. What is it, Control Shift?
F8.
Okay. So the only thing I was going to show y'all is to get rid of time codes. So let's say what I was going to show you there is sometimes the time codes are on an extra page where you don't need them anymore there, like it's your certification page. So it's going to be the part where you are saying, I'm a court reporter, I can legally do this, here's how much this transcript costs, here's the name of the attorneys, and that's what those final pages are. And so often my time codes will have bled into those. And so if you just go to Alt-In, and then from there you go to Omit Elements, and you select Time Codes. And you press Enter, and now everything past that point from there down is going to be omitted. So if you don't want them anymore, they disappear. And then that's that. And then if you want to bring them back, you just go back and do the reverse. So that is the simple act of doing the time codes. It's obviously Like, I know how difficult it is to have somebody telling you software stuff and then you can't even do it on your software until you're actually out there working. So just file this page away. And when you're actually working with a firm and they say time codes, you'll go, oh, I don't have to ask them, how do I do that? You'll know, and it'll work on your professional software. So now for the actual timekeeping of the depot. When David was doing depots, he said that y'all did not have to do this at all.
That was
Like,
20-something years ago, 21 years ago.
well, those were the good old days.
Yeah.
Now it's that added step of having to keep up with everything and what time is it. So I know I'm not here to say my way is the best, because my way is probably like the worst, but it makes sense to me, and so I'll tell y'all and y'all can take it and run and see, you know, maybe y'all are more organized or have a better, more revolutionary idea. So I always get, before I go into the depot, and I'll just kind of show y'all, have y'all done any like depot classes? I know that there have been some offered. Okay, so you have, okay. So have y'all ever seen a notice? Okay. Then I will just pass this around so y'all can see what we're looking at. So that's what you get when you're gonna go take a depot. You get that notice, and so what I've done, I was taught by somebody that you highlight the attorney who is the one ordering it in green, and that's good to know. Like when you're starting out, it's not always easy to know who is going to be. And so she had the best idea, and I used it for the first 3 months because my brain couldn't process the notice unless I had highlighted it, and then it eventually became second nature. But she highlights the attorney who's calling the depot, and you'll be able to, I'll show you how to read it because it's all legal jargon. But once you figure out who the one is ordering it, you highlight him in green because he's going to be the one paying, he or she. And so that's the one that you want to make sure you get to sign the order form first and foremost. So green because money. But you didn't hear it from me. But it really helped. Like that for me was always the way I would just remember, especially when these notices have 4 parties to the case and it starts to get so confusing and you walk into a room of, you know, a bunch of people staring at you. Just go for the green person first. So that is what you're going to get. And typically also, depending on the firm you're with, I think every firm actually gives you kind of their own little breakdown of information it's on the notice, but then they give you their own stuff. So this is like with my firm, they give out this reporter worksheet, and it's got the job number and the date and the witness and all the information you would need to show up. And so I take that with the notice that's being passed around, and I've read through the night before, checked if there's any kind of procedural things that will be listed on there. This is not something you'll need to stress out about right now, but sometimes depots are taking Texas rules, sometimes they're federal, and depending on that, it changes the way you handle read and sign, which is something else that you'll learn. But the point is, just read, when you get that notice, just always make it a habit to read through it, and not just assume, oh, I'll get there and check, because often there's information where I go, oh, this is being taken to something, you know, some out-of-state, civil rules. So just read it and then make sure that it matches up with the information they've given you. Make sure that someone didn't enter something wrong and that you're going to the right address. It's simple, stupid stuff, but at the same time, when you're overwhelmed with, I've got 500 pages, I'm just trying to get to my job on time, and you know, those are the things that you don't want to let slip. So I always put that in the folder, and then this folder kind of becomes like my scribble sheet, where I will put all of that, and then I always have order forms with me, and that's all, and exhibit stickers. You don't want to show up without the exhibit stickers. That's like your one function that you're there for, so don't show up and go, oops, I forgot those. They won't be happy. And so when you start, when you go on the record, I know people do it differently, but I've always made it a point, every depot I've been in, that I kind of set the tone by just always saying, let me know when you're ready to go on, and the attorney will say, okay, I'm ready. Or you can say, I'm ready when you are, just whatever. And so you're sitting there and you would just say, okay, then give me a moment, and that's when I turn on recorders. You don't want to forget that. You don't want to rely on recorders, but at the same time, you're new, and we screw up and make mistakes. And so you want to have some some fallback stuff.
Also, when you're gonna write a name like that too,
That's,
Okay.
yeah. And this one.
and
This one was a really good example of crazy names that you just sit there and go, I don't know what you just said. I think you spoke Russian. And I think one of those names is Russian. Ivanov, something. But yeah, so you make sure those recorders are on, and still, when in doubt, when you haven't heard something, you still do need to say, excuse me, could you repeat that, or could you slow down? And you do need to interrupt and not rely on that, but that could be the thing that saves your butt. I mean, even think if you got home and, you know, some horrible act of God, all of your equipment had crashed except for the recorders. You want to have something, some fallback. So at that point, I will say we are on the record at, and I quickly on my folder have a time column that I've put here. I'll show you. And then I do exhibits. So I've got time and exhibits on the folder, and this will be what sticks with this job for the rest of, till I've got it turned into my firm. And I'll put, we're on the record at 6, and I look at a digital clock, not that, to make it, you know, better. So, 6:19. And then I turn to the witness, swear him in. And that's also something you don't want to forget, is to swear in the witness. It would be bad, but yeah, so I say we're on the record, and by doing that, it just makes them kind of respect more that they're not going to just start talking and expect you to know, oh, was I supposed to be writing that? As long as you're, you know, there have been times where they've once before coming back into the room on a break and just went from talking about, hey, how's your kid doing this summer in college, to they turned to the witness and started, so, okay, we're gonna get, you know, back to the question we were asking, and that's the time when I've said, oh, excuse me, let me put us back on the record. And I always verbally, every time we take a break, I'll say we are off the record at, and every time we go back on from a break, I say we are back on the record at. And I always make sure that I have that verbally said, just because, you know, what if my time codes were off or something, and it's just that extra.
somebody challenges you.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got it on the audio. I've got it now, and I write it down every time, you know, when the break ends. So every time we take a break, then I'll say we're off the record at, and 7 o'clock. And so by the end of it, if it's a good depo that you leave happy and don't want to become an alcoholic, it looks like this. And it's like one exhibit and 50 minutes. No, I've turned to food instead of drink. Yeah. If it's a depo that makes you want to cry, then sometimes it's just like, you know, they're taking a break every 5 minutes, and it starts to get brutal. And so, yeah, this one literally took a break every 45 minutes to an hour, from 9:15 in the morning until, I want to say this one ended at 6:30. Yeah.
Sarah,
Yes, ma'am.
at some point in time, I got the impression that there was a stated number of hours that we could work as court reporters each day at a deposition.
There's no rule on how many we can work. There's a rule on how long a deposition can go, how long each party has, you know, so many hours to depose. However, they might go past that and decide to take it up with the court. And it's the point of timekeeping, and that was a good point, good segue, is that it is not our job. We're not the timekeeper as, we're not there to scold them or tell them, hey, you're going over time. I have a hair appointment that I was planning on making, and you're ruining my day a little bit. You have to stay there till they decide to go. So with that, though, there are times where they'll say, hey, how much time do I have left? And so I never tell them how much time they have left, because that would require me to formally remember every rule, and it depends on how the case is being taken, if it's Texas rules or federal. So I just always say, you know, give me a moment, and I add up the time that they've used, and I'll just say, you have used blankety blank. And then I've even had somebody before then say, okay, how many rules or how many hours do I have total? And like looked at me and said, I don't know, can tell you've used. And that was, I think that was this case actually.
That's their job, though.
Exactly. And so this one did go over. It went well over the amount of time. Yeah.
So they get 6 hours per side?
Is it
Six
6?
hours.
Per deposition, per person?
I don't even know, because I don't know if it's, I don't know, but this one was federal, so it might have been 7 hours. I think they get an extra hour.
So you won't get in trouble if you don't tell them you have this much time left.
You not only will you not get in trouble, but I would advise you to never say that.
Okay.
You don't want them to come back at some point and say, well, the only reason why I quit is because the court reporter told me I only had 30 minutes left and she rushed me. You know, you just need to always make it very, that you can always come back and say, oh no, I just gave them how much time we've been on the record.
Okay.
And so I make it a point, because for days like this where we've got, you know, a break every chunk, I don't want them to be sitting there staring at me as I'm trying to, in my head, do mental math of clock numbers, which I don't know, maybe my brain is just like inept, but for whatever reason, put it in increments of 60 minutes, and it makes it so hard to on the fly do mental math of hours. So with that, I got an app, see what it's called, because I just got tired of them sitting and staring at me, or me on breaks trying to frantically do number math in my head, and then trying to double check it, and then it didn't add up, so then I'm having to check it a third time. And so I got, it's called Hours and Minutes Calculator Lite, L-I-T-E.
Hours and minutes.
Calculator Lite, L-I-T-E. And I don't remember if it was free, but if it was any amount of money, it's worth it. And so I just always kind of carry this, and if it's something that's beginning to be a crazy day, it's just made to add clock amounts and put it into hours and minutes for you. And so
I noticed a number of court reporters I've seen use their tablets, and I was wondering, other than the thing with the timing, this application, do you use your tablet for anything else?
I personally don't. I know a lot utilize them for like real time and things like that. I only use it really for that. I also I also use it for proofing. So I can have proofers send me back my PDFs of 100 pages, and that way I don't have to print 100 pages every day. I just open the PDF and I can just proof it, transfer my corrections. So I got this, I bought it used for the proofing, and then realized, oh hey, I can get this clock on here. So let's say this one went from 9:15 to 10:43. I went 10:43 minus 9:15, and now it's an hour and 28 minutes, and it just quickly makes it. And so what this is good for is, the other fun thing about timekeeping that you got out of doing was, at the end of every depot, we have to put on the cert page how many hours and minutes were used by each individual attorney. So then we have to break it down. Indexing takes me forever, because I have to then go, oh wait, now I have to add up. And so you have to go through and find cross-examine,
Yeah.
So I found a way to do this quickly, after much trial and error. Let me just open up this lady's, because hers was a... Give me a moment. Okay. So this one is an example. We had a videographer for it. So when it's a videographer, then they're the ones to say we're on the record, and they're going to be the ones saying we're off the record, we're taking a break. But you still want to write down what time they're saying, because they'll still end up turning to you to say, hey, how much time have we used? So just still keep a track of that, and the one time that you forget to actually write it down is the time they're going to ask you. So so what I found I would do when it came time to the end, and I think there is probably a way in Eclipse to do this, have it do it for you, but I just haven't figured it out a way that would be quicker than what I kind of have done. I get a piece of paper, still one of these, and so in this case, I believe there might have been 3 attorneys that took turns asking, and so attorney 1, on my paper, while I'm just it's probably 3 in the morning at this point, and I'm ready to have this sucker sent out. I make a sheet and I go through and you can search for things. Have y'all done this? Like search for words in your transcript, or have y'all been taught how to press F?
Yes.
Okay. So if you press F and write examination, which is going to be your header for every single attorney, because no longer do depots, they used to do cross-examination, direct examination, but we don't do that anymore. We just put examination.
Really?
The courts, I think I've heard, had just said, don't, that's not really what that is, so we just put examination. And then examination by. So, I do that, and I'm able to look and see, okay, Mr. Pratt started at 1:55, and then the next examination, he ended at 3:44. And so 1:55 to 3:44. And then Mr. Venable started at 3:44. And so that's how I'm kind of able to
That's good.
start to get that kind of figured out. And then you want to check though for breaks to make sure that there wasn't a break taken between this 3:44 time and the one. So what I do is I'll go back up and I'll just search for a parenthetical, for a parenthesis, because I know that I'm always going to have a parenthetical put on my breaks. And so I'll just search for that. Or in this case, since apparently there were a million exhibits. And right there was a break, so I searched for the word break. And there was indeed a break taken between, so it was 1:55 to 3:27, and then 3:37 to 3:44. So now you've got that attorney's time, and you can add that up using your handy dandy app, and it's just a quicker way than anything else I've been able to figure out. And so you're going to want to go through the entire transcript though and make sure, because sometimes this guy is Mr. Pratt who was taking it, and he might end up on page 144 coming back at the end and saying, oh, I have one last question. And so sometimes they all just keep taking turns jumping, and so just make sure that the times are going to match the person that you've searched for. But as long as you just do this F and then look for your examination header, that'll kind of get you the bulk, and then you know from there to search for break. And then it also helps, that's why it's good to have it written here, because then you can kind of confirm that, okay, yeah, these are matching up. I'm not missing a break or somebody's time somewhere in all of this. And I'll show you what that actually looks like. So for this one, it was just 3 who asked questions. And that's where you would just go put it and indicate. And even if there's one who doesn't talk, they still have to be indicated, I think, as 0 hours and 0 minutes. Unless they're like co-counsel with somebody. But if they were there representing somebody on their own and they didn't speak, then you're still going to want to put their name. Did they use 0?
And that's at the end by the certification?
Yeah, so let me show you what depot certification pages look like. Because I know we throw these terms around and expect y'all to know this vernacular, and you know, there's some days I still don't know the vernacular. So the first page, what you've got in Texas, you get changes in signature page, or we call it read and sign. It's the same thing. This is the page for it. And so that's where I was saying the read and sign rules are different when I was saying that earlier. With federal, there's kind of 2 different thought patterns on this, but some people believe that the federal rule, if you're taking a depot pursuant to federal, is that you do not, as the court reporter, ask them, do you want read and sign? Because the people that reporters have interpreted the rule to mean that if they ask for the ability to have this page put in the transcript, they need to approach you. That is not your job to ask them. And so here's what happens. This is an unfortunate thing, is you've had sometimes a reporter decides, you know what, I'm going to ask anyway to be safe, because I don't want an attorney coming back and saying, no, I wanted that. And so she'll ask, and there have been instances where the attorney said, you shouldn't have said that. That was, you know, I've heard those horror stories. And then likewise, then you have the reporters that said, oh, okay, I got yelled at once for asking in federal. And so then they don't ask, and then the next one, the attorney comes back and says, no, I wanted read and sign, I expected you to, you know, just know. So that's kind of been like the most kind of annoying thing to have to kind of weed through and figure out, how am I gonna handle this so that I don't upset an attorney that I said something that I shouldn't have, because maybe they were gonna use, maybe a tactic they were gonna use was that, no, there's not gonna be a read and sign, the other party will forget about it. And then how do I not have someone come back and say, oh no, I wanted that. So what I have found is when you're with your firm, they've usually on the billing sheet, let's pretend that's what this is, they usually have a spot on there somewhere where it will say read and sign. And so when I take it to that attorney in a federal depot, I don't say anything. So that way I did not say anything, but I take the pen and I would say, would you like a copy today? And if they don't, then I say, okay, if I could just get you to indicate right here, and I just put an X by the read and sign part, so that way they are forced to look at it and do something with it. And then there's often times where they do want a copy, and so I'll say, okay, you know, here's your copy sheet, and if you could sign these 2 spots. And they always skip the read and sign spot, and so then I always have to take it back and say, if you could just double check this spot here. And so that has really alleviated that issue for me. So with Texas, it's such a better situation. You just ask, do you want read and sign today? And they'll tell you yes or no. 90% of the time, they do want it. It's pretty much the standard, at least in San Antonio. I think it kind of might differ from city to city. So all that means is that the original is going to go to the witness, and they get to read the whole thing, and then on this line, I think it's formally called the errata sheet, they get to
The what sheet?
errata, E-R-R-A-T-A. I should probably know that. That's where they can pretty much say, no, I didn't say that, or that name was misspelled, and the good thing is, that's, once it's out of your hands, it's out of your hands. They'll write their changes, they'll say what page and line and their change and reason, and then it's filed with the court, and it's no longer your issue. You don't have to do anything with that, short of, hey, you put the cause number wrong at the very top of the style, or something that needs to be legally changed because you screwed up the transcript, which is hopefully very rare, if never happens. But I've never had it come back with an errata sheet where they said we need this changed in the transcript. I've heard it might happen once in a blue moon if there was like a spelling of an attorney's name that came up wrong, but it's typically not something that you'll ever have to deal with past that point. So you put that in, and then the next page that goes behind it, and this is the order it'll always go in, according to kind of procedural stuff, is then the page where the witness can take it to the notary, because this has to be notarized. And so then they'll go sign it, so it's the read and sign. And so what happens is if they waive the read and sign, there's a totally different page you put there that's just one page that says the witness or whoever, waived their right to that. And so those 2 pages would not be there in that case. And then for that next back page is where you would put all the other information, which is your certification, saying it was submitted to on this date and certified to the rules and blah, blah, blah. So yeah. And those are all things that when you get started, you'll have those, I think you give out those block files, don't you? Do you give depot ones?
No, I don't have any.
Yeah.
I don't have any.
I didn't have any starting out. I had a reporter that sat us down one day in the depot class, which at the time was so painful, but when I started working and already had that file prepared, it was nice. And we just sat and created our own off of a template, and yeah, and it's not pleasant to make it, but then once it's made, you've got it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every transcript. And then the front pages, if y'all want to see what the front pages of a depo look like, you always have to indicate if it's an oral deposition, and then if it's videotaped, you also have to put that. And you put date and time, and then you'll follow, the format of giving the address and where it was taken. And then you've got an appearance page where you would put everybody who showed up at the depot, even if the other day I had a crazy depot where it was bizarre, but a girlfriend came up and she showed up and the attorneys were all out of state, so they were on the phone, and so this witness showed up 30 minutes late, right as I was about to, call it. He walked in and was like, okay, I'm here for my depot, and so I, was asking her to identify herself, and then the attorneys heard it and said, were you talking to someone else in the room? And they made her leave, and it was just, so that girl though, had she stayed in the depot, then she would have gone, I don't know if I have it, she would have gone here, under the also present tab, and I would have put Cynthia Jones Observer. And then you always have to put the videographer, and then you can't forget yourself, which is often the one that I just, up until last minute, will always forget, because I just think it's kind of a given. Yes, Valerie?
In my travels, I heard that it's always good to shadow a court reporter, either freelance or at the courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're shadowing you, for instance, would we also be put down as someone who was also present?
Yes.
And
In a
our
deposition.
capacity, why we were there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I wonder what I put it as. I had somebody once come with me to shadow for the training, and I do recall I put her down. I think I just might have put her as an observer. And then when she's in the room, I just introduced her to counsel. And for depots, they have to agree beforehand to allow that person to come. So they had already been notified that I would be bringing somebody, and then once they were there, I just reminded them that this is my friend, and she's here to observe today, and she's in training, and we appreciate you allowing her to sit in and learn. And it's simple as that. And then usually they'll crack a joke about, hey, this is getting taken down twice, so better be super accurate. And then yeah, here you'll put every single examination. So as you can see, they jumped all over and took their turns, and so you'll have to put every page where they started again.
Is there something in our system that's going to tell us where they were on what page, or do we have to physically go through and?
Is there a way to auto-populate?
Auto what?
Auto-populate some of these fields for like that, to have it auto-index. I know
Oh yeah,
there's
there is an
auto-indexing.
auto-index. It's so hard though.
That's why I haven't done it.
And I even had Chris Poe come speak about it.
Yeah.
He's like the guru of Eclipse, and he's like, Dave, it's super hard.
Yeah.
And that's why I told him. I mean, even like some of the stuff that you're talking about, like on the time, I'm sure that there's a way to do it.
There is a time clock, but nobody that I speak to even knows how to do it, and it's.
So you probably have to take the Eclipse class.
Yeah.
I mean
And that's what I'm
reporter
saying. What
version.
I'm saying, this might be such antiquated advice compared to the things the software is capable of. However, there does come a point where you're kind of like, is the effort I'm putting into making the software do what I want it to do, could I just do it faster with some of like the methods where I just quickly find examination and look at the page number and go, okay, that's the page we're on. And when I do so, I'm not having to jump back and forth. That's where that paper comes in. By the end of my indexing process, this paper is just scribbled up with exhibits and all the information, and then I just all type it into the indexing page at the end so that I'm not jumping back and forth between pages. I kind of just quickly jot it down and then transfer that information over. Now for my 1,600 page trial, where you have to index every day, I don't really know how that process will be to do that all manually. So yeah, I might be contacting someone and saying, help me figure out this auto indexing. But for deposition world, it's very doable. But yeah, if you could figure out, if you attended training for that, and if that made life that much easier, then come teach me after you find out. And yeah, and then you've got to list your exhibits and the pages they're at. And then
So
it begins.
So you when you did examination, you found who you were, who was where. Do you do the same search for exhibits?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly think my search that I found works best is I think I'll do March sometimes. And just jump from page to page. And I know there's a way to auto do that for
Oh, yeah.
sure.
I don't
that's,
even know.
yeah,
I don't even know how to do it.
yeah,
I've been doing it 21 years,
exactly.
and I've just, my way is
What do you
easiest
do?
for me.
What do you do?
I go through and I just highlight a word,
And is it
So
like the
mark,
same as this, like letter
offer.
to? Okay,
admitted,
yeah,
so.
Yeah.
Usually what I'll do is I'll highlight like exhibit, because usually that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
We want to offer exhibit, or we want to mark exhibit, and exhibit such and such is admitted.
Yeah.
So they're always talking about, so that to me is kind of the easiest way. But usually what I do, and I've told them, is I print the whole thing. How do you proofread? Do you proofread from the computer?
so yeah, that's what, no.
Yeah, I still print. I still print to make sure that everything is lined up, everything's good, there's not a page break that got in there somehow or another. And so when I go through is on my page where all of my exhibits and my witnesses are on, and I just write it
Handwrite
down.
it, and then you transfer it, which is basically what I'm doing with that
Yeah.
extra page.
Yeah.
When I'm proofing for myself, if I haven't paid somebody to do it, which I will say it's really good, I think when you're out of school to find a working reporter, I would say that you would be remiss to not do this. Find somebody who is a working reporter, not just a, hey, I'll proof for you, but someone that knows the ins and outs. Find a David, but someone that wants to do it, because I don't think David wants to do proofing for y'all. David is indicating off camera a giant no. But find a working reporter and establish that relationship, find out their rates, and be willing to pay them, and just consider it part of just, this is me becoming better, and let them read your work, let them tear it to shreds and show you where your errors are. And that's a really good, it's been having a working reporter checking my stuff for those first months, where she would catch some of the things that, oh, you didn't do this right, or this could be better done. And so now I'm at a point where if it's a quick little slip and fall case, I can proof that on my own, and I will print it and make my corrections and input them. But then still some weeks I have so many pages out that I will send it to a proofer, and that's what I was saying is great where, let me see if I have it here. I have one out of state that I use, and I'll send her my stuff, and she'll send it back in PDF. She'll upload her corrections. And then I download it here, and that's how I can just go through and not have to print 200 pages of stuff. So it's just saving me money and time and ink. And
So you go to a working reporter as opposed to a scopist?
so there's a difference between a scopist and a proofer. So the scopist is going to be somebody who would take your stuff before you even touched it, and it still looks potentially like garbage, and they're going to take the audio file, you would hope, and go through with the audio and your steno and add in drops and clean up, mistrans and untranslates. And they're going to charge more because that's a much more time-intensive job. I've never used a scopist. There might be a point that, yeah, I do get so bogged down that, and as you kind of have to wait until your writing is clean enough to use a scopist, because you can't give them, they won't take you, on if your writing is just like totally unable to be read. It has to already be pretty good, and so they'll charge a significantly higher rate. The proofer takes that job that's already scoped. So I scope it on my own. I scope everything, and then I would send it to a proofer, who would be in that case the working reporter, or somebody with just enough background to be able to catch some rookie mistakes that I could potentially make. And so you want to kind of establish relationships with proofers. You want more than just one, because it'll be the same week that you have a 300-page rush that you contact your tried and true proofer and they're on vacation, or they have a stomach bug. So you want to have a couple people in your pocket. And so the lady that I work with out of state, she was not a reporter, but I didn't start using her until very recently, and I vetted her work and checked that it was meeting that she was catching mistakes and she was doing a really great job. So, but for starting out, definitely use someone that has a lot of experience, so they'll catch your stuff. And then proof after them. I mean, until you know yourself and how many mistakes you're making and what your regular consistent errors are, you know, you can't be too safe to check it 3 and 4 times. So, and I was stupid for the longest time. I just assumed that spell check. Don't even laugh at me. Didn't you assume that spell check, you know, with Microsoft Word, spell check is just like, oh, it catches some misspellings. But spell check in Eclipse is much smarter than that. And I just assumed, I already read it, there's no errors, and I've sent it to a proofer. And it took me realizing, oh wait, it's gonna check the things like you have 2 questions back to back, and it's gonna check you have 2 speakers back to back. Like instead of saying Mr. Jones and Mr. Smith, you accidentally put Mr. Jones and Mr. Jones, which is wrong. So the spell check is really gonna also save your butt. It's like that final, oh, oops, glad it caught that. So don't.
And it's stuff that sometimes when you're going through and proofing it, you're worried about the context of the body of the thing rather than the speakers sometimes, that you don't pick it up. This picks it up. And what's going to sound really weird is the lady that I used to work for never did spell check. Never. And I'm like, what? Nope. You should be proofing it, and you should be catching it. No. You use as many things as you can to try to catch whatever you can. Because it's little things like that. It's even, words that you put twice.
Even, or, yeah.
Yeah.
Or spacing. If
Or
you
spacing.
do one space too much, I mean, it'll catch those things that the naked eye just can't when you're trying to do, 300 pages in 8 hours because they want it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was stupid, and I just thought, oh, it's spell check like Word, which is just, I don't rely on that. But no, it's actually, yeah, very, very helpful. So yeah, so I think that's really the bulk of it. And yeah, so once I though finish a depo and turn it in, then I would just file these away and I keep them. I've got all my year's worth of files. I don't know what legally, like how long we're supposed to keep them, but I will say keep them in an organization for quite a while. These files, because there was a point where I thought, you know what, I've turned in my depos, I've got those backed up, but I probably can start clearing out some of these because these start to add up because I had a whole drawer of them. And then 6 months later, they were coming back to ask a question that the answer was in the file. It wasn't something that I could answer through looking at the transcript. So I'm just kind of keeping mine for a couple of years at least until I feel like, okay, that case is probably through the courts and they're not going to come back with a question. So yeah, that's about it. When y'all are in a depo, we talk a lot about getting spellings for things, but we don't ever really tell you. I know in school they would just say make sure you get spellings, but when you're writing, how do you stop to write that down, or how would you remember? And so it's really smart to, what do you do, David? What is your stroke? Do you have a stroke?
For what?
To note that you want to get a spelling for something. Do you do a stroke in your machine?
I just do spell.
Okay, so he does spell. I do note, and that pops up reporter's note.
Yeah.
And then I'll go do the search for a reporter's note. And so then when we're on a break, it'll take me to each spot. And so that way, it's easier than trying to, even that, it's such an easy concept, but when I was starting out, I was still trying to in between write a note oh, sort of think it's this name. And so now I just put note, and then even if I have a chance, then I might even finger spell kind of what I think the word is, because sometimes that's easier than on a break trying to then sound out what steno you got, and it's easier to kind of already have an idea to just go, okay, this is the word I'm looking for. So that's going to be something that what you'll do is you'll program global note to come out as whatever you decide to make that thing, and then I just have it reporter's note and I go search it.
And most of the machines now,
Do they have mark on them?
that's
I think they do.
Mm-hmm. They do. So if you'll see, right? Just a second. All you do is hit mark, and it puts a little mark right there. No.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, and it just puts a little mark. So when you go through there, you can check the mark. So when you go through there and ask it, you know, well, what are you looking for? Search for last mark, and it will go up there. So if you take a break and it's like Dr. Ivanovich or whatever, they say, what? You know, the first time you're going to stroke it out, like I told you, you're not going to do Ivanovich every time. And if you are, good luck. But, you know, you want to mark it the first time, then when you take a break, it's like, you spoke of this Dr. Ivanovich. Do you know how to spell it? Oh, yeah, it's blah, blah, blah. Or you can go through and Google it. Like I told you guys, it's going to become your best friend. That Google is going to become your best friend.
And the other thing with that, I think we have a tendency to rely so much on technology, like that, like here's a good example of, the guy said, he was from Longmont, which was not a town I was familiar with, and I couldn't hear what he said. Is that you know that town?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was near Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said Longmont, and so because I couldn't hear it, I wasn't just going to rely on, oh, I'll pick it up on the audio and Google it. I asked him, you know, what is it and how do you spell that? And then I always write the words that I needed spelling. I write it down versus come in here. If you want to write it on your machine, like finger spell it, that's one thing, because then it gets put into your steno notes and backups. But what you don't want to do is just put Longmont and do it like here, and then risk something crashing, and then that update that you put for the spelling is not going to be reflected if you have to go back to your writer and upload the notes. And so you don't want to, for a case that's super long, have typed in every proper name that mattered, have something crash, and then you lose all your spelling. So I always just write mine down, and that way that's not going anywhere. But that was something that, yeah, for a while I was typing them in, and then it hit me that this isn't really backed up if this goes anywhere.
Yeah.
So just kind of always cover your bases is really the moral of Court Reporting 101. And that's about it. Does anybody have any questions of anything?
You make it sound so easy and so simple.
Well, that's good. If you have a method, it's not that hard. Kind of like speaker identifications. You know, there have been times where I walked into...
Talk about that. What do you use?
Okay. So I had to do a medical conference, and so I walked in, and they had said, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of doctors there. And I showed up, and it was a U-shaped circle that I sat at the end of, and there were 16 to 20, depending on the day, foreign doctors. Maybe 2 were native English speakers. And I left that, and I went home and cried the first day because I just thought, this is horrible. They were reading through 20 patients. They had 20 patients that they had to go through in what they thought would be 2 hours. It lasted about 6 for the first day. And so they had this doctor who would sit there and read every patient's medical record and what cancer and what chemo drugs and what she did. And she would do it at 400 words a minute in an Indian accent. 20 records of it, and then people would then get to talk, and they would fight about, was that the proper treatment? And so then there was a doctor from Nigeria, and there was a doctor from Mexico, and I just sat there the whole time like, I'm gonna die. It was bad. But the speaker identification is the moral of this story. So I got there and realized this, I don't know how I'm gonna quickly find a way, because I don't do names well. If y'all do names and name identifications work for you, run with that. But for me, it's easier to remember numbers. And so in a typical depot, an easy one, I always, when I get there, find it. I always draw a seating chart. And so what I've got here, well, I don't know if it needs to be on the camera. I draw like the table, where I sat, where the witness sat, where the attorney sat, and typically there's just a couple for depots. There's not really usually going to be a ton. Okay, and so you would draw, like make your diagram every time you go, because even sometimes, the diagram always helps, because even sometimes if there's something you hear in the audio recording after the fact, you can even sometimes kind of hear, okay, wait, I know where that voice came from, and identify it through here. And so then you go through and you number. And so if I'm sitting at the table, to do it backwards, questioning attorney would be on my left, because my question bank is on my left, witness on the right. And then his attorney sits beside him. And so typically I've got one, and then my right hand is going to be the other attorney. And so that one's simple. It's not really, it's pretty pretty simple. So for this conference though, I had never done like more than maybe 5 speakers, and suddenly I'm here and there's like 16 to 20. And so I went around and I fixed the situation by the next day, because I don't suggest this. This wasn't the most professional thing to do, but I'm gonna tell myself on camera. I just went and I got Post-its and I had electric tape, and I just put a Post-it on the front of each kind of seating with a number. And then I went to the store that night because I knew I had a second day of this, and I went and got place cards from like Michael's from the wedding section, and I numbered 1 through 20, and I went that morning and I put a place card in front of every person, and that worked so much better. And I've done that. I always keep them in my bag because I always end up showing up to something where there's like 16 attorneys and they're going to have a a pre-trial conference with the judge or something. And so I had the trial I'm editing right now. Before we went in, there were about 12 of them, and they all wanted to have a pre-trial conference. So I drew my graph, got all their names, wrote down their names, and then notated what number was sitting in front of them, and they all had a place card. And yeah, they might chuckle like, oh, this is a wedding, and I just tell them, yep, you're number 1. So, and then they get into fights about, why is he number 1? Why can't I be number 1? And it's, but they appreciate it. I've had so many attorneys who have commented and said, wow, that is like, never seen that, but that actually makes so much sense, and that's like, hey, that works, that's brilliant. So I give them the numbers. As far as what I do for my numbers, when it's that many people, I just go 1 with asterisk, 2 with asterisk, 3, 4, 5. For some of my numbers, because of my theory, I can't add an asterisk to like, I think it's 17, or there's something that it conflicts with something else I use. So then I just drag in the number bar. So I know so some of my numbers I do 1 with an asterisk, and then as I get into the teens, it's easier for me to like do 20 with the number bar, dragging that in with my pinky instead of 20 with the asterisk. So just find a number, if you choose to do numbers, find a number way that you can do it in like 1 stroke, for 1 through 20 at least. If you've got more than 20 speakers, God bless you. Yeah, that's called jury selection at that point. But yeah, so the note card thing can really save your butt, and it's like $10 at Hobby Lobby. And then the moral of that story is you can save them and reuse them for your wedding.
Or that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Questions? Okay.
I know you said that you synced your time with the videographer. How do you do that? Did you just go into the time code?
No, I make them sync to me.
Like how does that?
That's on their end. I would tell
Okay.
them what time I'm showing on my, it's not off your machine, because my stenograph, it gets wonky sometimes with the times.
Yeah.
It's the time code is coming from your computer's internal clock. So when you sync with them, just make sure that you look at the right time, which would be the one at the bottom of your screen. And tell them, and you can pull that up and see it down to the minute and second. So you need to be able to just tell them it will be turning 7:02 in 10 seconds, and then you just sit there and go 5, 4, 3, 2, now. And then they will adjust theirs
Okay.
to match it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty easy. Or if they often will look at it and they'll say, oh, I'm only 5 seconds behind you. And that's one of those days where I'll go, okay, if it happened to, that 5 seconds mismatched, I can fix that with the Shift Alt C that we discussed, where it just fixes one specific time code.
Shift Alt Z.
C.
C.
C. Yeah.
Did y'all get that?
And that's when they wrote down, and
Okay.
yeah. And do y'all know how to I don't even know. I've forgotten. It's been so long since I made an ASCII.
That's what they were asking too. I've never made one.
You don't?
Like when I was working, they used to make them for us.
Okay, so you have to create your own ASCII. And I know that's like I remember hearing that term, and I just always in school stressed out and was like, how will I know how to do that? And why is Depo World so hard? Because it just has all these terms that you don't hear, and I don't think you hear them as much at SAC, just because I think we have feel like San Antonio has a lot of court reporters, and so you hear a lot of the court terms, but maybe not as much of the depo side. And so you shouldn't be afraid of the depo side just because it's more foreign. It's not necessarily any scarier. It's just a different beast. So yeah, so the whole ASCII thing, I interviewed with my firm and was hired, and she had let me know, okay, we're gonna get time codes and you'll give us the ASCII, and I just went, okay. And then I called my software panicked, and I thought they're not gonna be able to tell me, how to do this. And so I called them and I go, can you tell me how to do an ASCII? And he just kind of laughed and was like, yeah, Shift Alt O. So I do it, and I go, okay, Shift Alt O. And he goes, okay, so you see how that's open? And I said, yeah. And he goes, press enter. Now my ASCII's created. Like, it was that simple. And so now what I do is when I go into my internet, then I go into my documents, and that ASCII is already popped up. It's called .txt.
Can you go in there?
I don't know if I can I don't have internet. Can I get internet here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a guess.
Yeah, I'll show you. What is it, baby?
I think it's just.
Alamo Ghost?
Yeah. And I think you just have to put in your email address.
Okay. I gotcha.
Because you can do it through File Manager too, I believe. Create the ASCII through File Manager. Control F.
Technically, yes, but this way, like,
That seems really
it
easy.
is so easy because you just go into your email,
What is it? Control Shift.
Shift Alt O, and I'll show you all again once I have it reconnected to internet. Okay. We might be in business. Okay, y'all. Did I break it?
I don't know why.
Okay. So I'll go back here and show you one more time. Shift Alt O is the combo. Enter. My ASCII is complete. Now I need to go send it to my firm because I think pretty much every firm in 2016, they just want the ASCII. And so I go to my documents is where it can be found, is where my stuff is. And I go to Eclipse. And now I'm in my Eclipse. And I go to Sarah because that's my user that it was created under. And there it is. As you can see, I misspelled Hickman. I made the I capital and just didn't really care. Because they don't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the ASCII is gonna be this TXT. So the Eclipse file is the one that you were working on that like you could put into your Eclipse, and that's all of your stuff. That's like the bare bones of it. And so then the ASCII, and I'll show y'all what that actually looks like because it's in a totally different format. You just attach it. And there it is. I don't know that it will attach because the internet I don't think is actually connected. But let me show you what that actually looks like. Hold on. Okay. And so this is it. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to take away your format box because it's going to enable it to be run through whatever firm you're working with. They'll put it into their system and format it to their specifications, and that's kind of also a good safeguard that it's not going to be breaking any formatting rules. It, you know, keeps everything uniform. It's still going to come out as the size. Like if I set my margins to, you know, in it stated, it's not going to stretch it or make it any, it's not going to change the size, but it'll enable the firm to put in like their headers and footers and stuff if you're working with them, so that their name is on it. So yeah, it's just the bare bones of the whole transcript. That's about it. So yeah. Okay.
Y'all do condensed copy, stuff like that?
Yeah. I don't really know much about that process because that all gets taken care of.
We went through it, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know if.
Do you have to do that as your own court? I mean, because you're your own production staff.
Yeah.
So do you do condensed if they want condensed? You just,
I've never had anyone ask for that, ever.
I get a request for it in depots once a week if I'm going on 5 jobs that week. Or,
Really?
you know, yeah.
So what, do they want the 2 or do they want the 4?
I want to say it's standard with the firm, so you just would tell them. I think standard is 4.
Oh, it is 4?
I don't think that many do too. But that's the thing, you just want to be versed on, you know, always kind of glance over this. If you're truly freelancing where you're going between multiple firms, kind of always familiarize yourself with their billing sheets, because they're going to ask you every time, you know, well, okay, what are your options?
Yeah.
And you don't want to stand there and be like, oh, I don't know, I just handed you the sheet to sign. So at least kind of be able to point them to, oh, well, we have condensed or E-Tran. And a lot will ask if you have E-Tran, and that's just like the PDF electronic file. Yes, I think every firm offers E-Tran. So, yeah. And that's it. And always back up your files. Back up, back up, back
I
up.
told them that.
Yeah. I have all of my, I have 2 recorders that are external from my mic that picks up and does audio sync with my transcript. And honestly, I really like those better because the sound quality is so much better than anything my machine, even hooked up with a mic. Yeah, I've had so much better luck. And so I'm in the Stone Ages and I don't even plug your ears. You don't want to know, but I prefer to use pedal because it, and I have methods that I do to keep it just as succinct as, and then I use audio sync to still spot check because it's good enough for that. But sometimes
I love that audio sync.
I do, but I've also loved, there have been times when having recorders with better quality saved my butt. But yeah, so I've got 2 audios on that, 1 on the computer, so that's 3 audios right there. And then my steno, which has its own internal backup, and the stuff on my real time, because I always write every job to real time to have that extra backup. And then that also enables me to make corrections on the fly. And then once my steno card filled up, I just stored it away and I just put a fresh one in. And so that way then I've got like 3 backups, because then I've taken an external hard drive to my laptop and still backed up everything. And so I've got so many different things in my apartment of spots where I'm hiding backups of things. And thankfully, there was one time I did have to use one because my software just like dumped something. And so I was able to feed it in easily. But yeah, just always be paranoid and play the what if game, and yeah, when in doubt, back it up a 5th time. Yeah. Okay.
Any questions, guys?
Do you work for one firm?
I work for one firm, yeah. So that's kind of, I feel like I get the best of both worlds because I get to do the fun freelance stuff. I've taken some really cool cases that I'll talk about. I can tell y'all kind of more even off camera. But it's been some really cool stuff. And by working with the one, for me, it makes me feel less stressed and frazzled. Like I know that people juggle a ton of different firms, and some love that, but I really like having just the one that I work with exclusively. And so through her, I've done court. That's why I've got this huge appeal that's coming up. So I've subbed for court, gone and taken, I think I did the math, I've taken 2 months solid of court in this year. And they were all like district trials and stuff. And then another chunk is depots, and then probably a good 15% has been really random stuff that's been the cool things. That medical conference, grand juries, which are things where you as the reporter get sworn into like secrecy for the rest of your life about the content of it. I did a political thing last month that was like Secret Service was there. I mean, there's been some really cool things that didn't fall into any category. It was just its own thing that I went, man, I can't believe they used a court reporter for this, but glad they did. So yeah. The one thing that I made it on the news for was not court. It was a school board hearing that was of a principal who was up under the school board, and they televised and had it all. It's on YouTube, and so yeah.
How did you handle the medical conference that was such a big thing?
I cried. Like I went home. Like I don't cry, but I like went home and cried and had an asthma attack. Like I'm not even kidding. I had to take my inhaler, and then I went into it the next day. And that was the other thing. They wouldn't let me take pictures of any of the, because it was HIPAA. So they would let me on every break. I could furiously scribble down every bit of information, but when you've got 20 files and every single word in it is something medical, you know, it was, so I sat on the floor because there wasn't even a seat for me, and I was just scribbling stuff down, and I had notebooks full of just random words that I later pieced back to, okay, this is the cancer that this patient had. And then I went in day 2 with the speaker identification more figured out. And then that one, thankfully, was just an easier day. But the ultimate thing is don't be afraid to speak up if you can't hear. And actually, yeah, are you able to turn off the camera?
So what?
Are you able to turn off the camera?
Yeah.
Okay.